Welcome to the first Focal Plane podcast reviews the Canuck FD12 shotgun. My name is Chris. I'll be your guide on this little journey through one of the latest shotguns to come out of Turkey. The Canuck FD12, or Hunt Group FD12 as it's known pretty much everywhere else, is a Turkish-made Bullpup 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun, and it's a lot of fun. This shotgun is being brought in for the Canadian market by Odell Engineering, who runs the Canuck line of Canadian firearms. For the last several years, they've been making a splash in the Canadian market with budget-priced, well-made, Turkish-manufactured firearms, especially for the Canadian market. The FD12 is the second Bullpup shotgun for Canuck firearms. Let's go through some pros and some cons and my thoughts on this shotgun. First of all, let's talk about what I like. It's incredibly easy to handle. Its Bullpup design makes it very balanced in terms of weight and very easy to manipulate. Put on its sling and it's an easy carry for full day of bird hunting or even larger game hunting with the appropriate loads. Although it has the same problem for lefties as most Bullpups, it ejects only out the right-hand side directly into the waiting lefty's face. It does have ambidextrous charging handle, safety switch, and magazine release. It's reliable. From new out of the box until I had put over 1,200 rounds through it, my FD12 had exactly 5 malfunctions. 2 were failures to feed properly from me smacking the bottom of the magazine too hard on insertion, more on that later, and 3 were failures to eject light target load low brass shells. Keep in mind that out of that 1,200 or so rounds, more than 90% of them were low brass shells, and all 3 of the failures happened within the first 200 rounds or so, with none happening since the shotgun could be considered broken in. It's pretty easy to strip. It comes with a nut wrench for the handguard, and with the exception of the takedown pins, everything else comes apart pretty easy for cleaning or troubleshooting malfunctions. For a notorious Bullpup, the trigger is superb. It's heavy, but let's be honest, it's a shotgun, so a hair trigger may not be in your best interest anyway. And it's also crisp with a very obvious reset, both tactile and auditory. Before the trigger breaks, there's a small amount of take-up, and upon reset, there's a small amount of travel as well. I can't say it's Geisley worthy, but for a factory Bullpup that's under $1,000, it's right on the money. Put it this way, the Norinco T97 can still suck an egg as the world's worst modern Bullpup trigger. It comes with everything you need. Right out of the box, this shotgun comes with flip-up sights, 2 5-round magazines made for Canada, and 1 2-round magazine for Canadian hunters. It has a single-point sling and a folding front grip just for good measure. It's a full-feature shotgun at an extremely competitive price. It even comes with an elevation adjustment tool for the front sight. It's soft shooting. Not any more than any other gas-operated shotgun, but still, it's appreciated. It has threaded chokes and comes with 3 different choke types, full, modified, and cylinder, each labeled by the numbers 1, 3, and 5. It has a 3-inch chamber and it likes heavy loads. Although it handles smaller bird shot well, even low brass, it really likes heavier loads like double-aught buck, triple-aught magnum buck, and slugs. It is inexpensive. In a world where semi-automatic shotguns can average over $1,000 up to more than $2,500, the FD12 sits at a manageable average price of $749 Canadian based on my search of 4 different online retailers. Now let's take a look at what I don't like. The magazines like to stick. The patterning on the magazines, which I want to call waffling, but isn't, I just don't have a better word for it at the moment, it goes up a little bit too high and extends outwards over top of where the magazine catch hooks the magazine. While ejecting a magazine, this outward waffling like to catch or rub on the magazine catch, and that can make it stick. It's an easy fix with a quick dremeling, I'm sure, but it's also an easy fix at the factory. It's not so noticeable with the heavier 5-round magazine, and they tend to drop free reasonably regularly, but the 2-round hunting magazine almost never drops free, and you have to grip it and rip it. Speaking of the magazines, this is kind of a pro in that the magazines seat very easily with simple insertion into the mag well until you hear it click locked. However, if you're in the habit of slapping the bottom of the magazine to ensure it's seated, you can cause malfunctions. At least, it tended to cause them in the one that I tested. Early on in my testing, I would slap the bottom of the magazine, to ensure proper seating, and it appears as though it slapped into the mag just a little bit too far, and it caused 2 failures to feed. As the bolt attempted to strip the shell from the magazine, it would get stuck in the receiver, causing a malfunction that was easy but certainly a pain to clear. It required pulling the bolt back to release the stress on the shell and the magazine, then you could drop the magazine and extract the misfed shell before reinserting and rechambering. Both of these failures happened within the first 25 or so rounds, and I identified it pretty quickly. And once I stopped slapping the bottom of the magazine, this malfunction stopped and did not reoccur. On takedown, the threads of various nuts are a hodgepodge of standard and reverse threading. Once you realize it, it's easy as pie to handle, but it's strange. See the takedown part of this review for more information on that. The safety lever is just a smidge too far forward on the left side. It's easy on the right because you use your longer fingers to reach it, but on the left it takes just a little bit of hand adjustment to clip that safety on and off. It was, in fact, the first thing that everyone mentioned who shot this gun during my review tests. So what are my final thoughts? This is a superb budget semi-automatic shotgun for the Canadian market. It has a few hiccups, but none of them are deal-breaking. Where it counts, this shotgun performs. In short, it's light, it's reliable, and it comes with everything you need for blasting at the range or hunting. If you're a sport shooter, it may not replace any competition guns, but show me a Bullpup that excels as a race gun, and I'll show you 5 other shotguns that are better suited for the task. That being said, I would hunt with this shotgun all day long. From the smallest birds to the largest game, I would have utmost confidence that whatever shell I've loaded for the task, it'll handle it reliably. If they make a shell that's appropriate for it, I would trust this shotgun to shoot it. I would also carry it in the wilderness for predator protection, and I wouldn't worry at all about whether it will go bang if I need it to. For an average Canadian price of under $800, this shotgun is a deal and a half. If you want one, check out just about any Canadian retailer carrying the Canuck line of firearms, or contact Odell Engineering for more information. Also, stay tuned to the First Focal Plane podcast because we're giving away this test shotgun to some lucky listeners soon. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on our website at ffpp.ca. That stands for First Focal Plane Podcast.ca. Imagine that. You can watch us live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. CST on YouTube and on Facebook Live. For right now, though, let's take a look at the takedown and the assembly of this rifle. And I even did a little bit of a spread test for you guys with different chokes and different types of ammunition. It was a terrible day outside, really windy, didn't work out very well, but I'm going to include it in this video just for interest's sake. All right, guys, let's take apart the DP12. First of all, you're going to need some tools. The first tool you're going to need is the wrench that comes with it. Let's get started. We've got our DP12 here. I've pre-loosened a couple of things for you. First thing you guys need to know is that pretty much every nut on this thing is reverse threaded. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the barrel nut here. Of course, I say it's reverse threaded and then I don't turn it the right way. Let's turn it the proper way. And this is our nut that is holding our handguard in place. But to take the handguard off, we must remove the charging handle. Charging handle just pulls out like so. And then we should be able to slide the forward handguard out. Obviously doing that nice and gentle. We don't want to scratch things that we don't need to scratch. Once we've got this off, we're going to be taking off the gas chamber and we're going to be taking off the barrel entirely. But before we do that, we need to loosen things up a little bit more and we need to take out our 2 takedown pins. So there's one pin here. There's one pin here. Don't unscrew this. I don't know why. They say not to in the manual, so just don't do it. Just do what they say. Take this one, this one. Now, one thing I will say about this, I mean, these are some pretty gnarly looking pins. You can see that they come out past the receiver. This one was a little bit mashed from the factory. I'm not sure exactly what that was about, but they don't come out the easiest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find me just a littlest punch here. And just ever so gently, we're going to give it a little punch to get it started. Same on this side, just give it a little punch to get started. Of course, I say a little punch and then it's ornery as hell, requiring a little bit more than a little punch. Anyway, once they're loose, We pull one pin out. I have a feeling this one's going to be a little stickier than I want it to be. Of course it is. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. And then we're going to pull that pin out. Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's not the easiest pins that I have ever taken out. Okay, once our pins are out in the front and the back, the upper receiver will separate from the lower receiver. However, first we are going to remove our gas chamber, remembering once again that it's reverse threaded. Now I can take this right off by unscrewing this past this second set of threads as well. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to leave it on. This here, this gas chamber, is the only threading that is standard threaded. Don't ask me why. Every other one is reverse threaded except for that sucker. And now that I think of it, you know what I'm going to do? We are going to take this apart because we're going to show you how everything comes apart. So I'm just going to thread this past the second set of threads. I'm going to take it off. This gas chamber will come right off. And you can see here, two pieces. You've got your O-ring. Obviously, this is where you're getting your gas. You're going to need to clean that every once in a while. I've put very few rounds through this at this point, and I can already see that there's some carbon buildup here. So you're probably going to be needing to take that apart every once in a while to clean it. So that is how you do it. And it just fits in there with that little O-ring. It's pretty simple. Now we're ready to separate our upper and lower receivers. So we're just going to lift up on the barrel a little bit here. Make sure that everything comes apart nice and easy. Now, this is where our charging handle locks in here on one side or the other. And then we've kind of got our support arm that really does the charging of the bolt, okay? And like, this is a super simple setup. I actually really like this setup. It's not complicated in the least, which, you know, the less complicated things are, the less things go wrong, generally speaking. So we're going to slide off the sling mount. We're going to set our lower receiver aside for a moment. Okay, so to finish taking apart our upper receiver, we can start to see that the barrel and the remainder of the charging handle and arm mechanism is being held on by this barrel nut into the receiver. This obviously needs to be tight. The manual says make sure that you it actually says to take the gun apart every once in a while before using it and make sure that this stays tight. So that means that obviously it is an important part to keep tight. I have pre-loosened it because you're going to probably want to put your upper in a vise. I don't have a vise right here. So, you know, I pre-loosened this before we started filming. You may need to use a vise or whatever else. Keeping in mind, this is reverse threaded again. This is lefty, which should be loosey, but that's tightening it back up. This is righty, which is supposed to be tighty, but because this is reverse threaded, it ain't. And finally, she's done. Okay, so now once I've got the threading loose on the barrel and the receiver, I can go ahead and remove the barrel from the receiver. So receiver is just obviously one piece of aluminum. It's all good. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. The barrel and the bolt assembly are all kind of one system here. So to remove this assembly arm, simply pop down here where it just fits into the bolt. Make sure you keep some tension in your hand there. You don't want it to sling across the room. Slide that over the barrel. Lots of things slide over the barrel in this sucker. You can take the spring out if you're going to be cleaning the whole thing down, clean the spring down. You can start to see some of the wear marks and where the wear marks are. We'll give you a better close-up of that in the video, but you can start to see where you're going to need some lubrication for your wear marks. We are left with a bolt. Bolt simply slides out of place, and it's just a simple bolt, 12 gauge bolt. We got a spring-loaded firing pin. I wanted to say hammer, but that's not the right word. We've got our spring-loaded ejector, and yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of complication to this whole setup. Finally, we are left with just a barrel. And that's how we take this sucker apart. If you're going to take it apart even more, I mean, you've got your trigger assembly in the lower housing or the lower receiver. I'm not going to mess around with this at all. I've never taken apart a Bullpup trigger group. It doesn't seem that much more complicated other than the fact that there's kind of two aspects to it. But I've never done it, and I don't think it's required for field stripping video or cleaning, basic cleaning video. So we're just going to leave that right where it is. And there's not much else to take apart in the lower that you would need to take apart. If you wanted to change out the hand grip, I cannot confirm this, but it really looks like this is just a standard AR-15 hand grip that's meant to have taken a grip with a beaver tail. Maybe I can confirm that for you guys at another time, but that's what it seems like right now. And that's our take apart. Boom. That's our disassembly. Let's start putting this ugly mother back together. We're going to start with our barrel. We're going to put our bolt back in place. We're going to fit our spring inside of our charging handle / recoil lever arm thingamajigger. And slide all that onto our barrel. And then we're just going to create a little bit of tension on the spring, and we're going to slide that into the bottom fitting on the barrel, and the barrel is back together. We've got our barrel nut is sitting there. We never really took that off. Obviously you can take it off, but you know, we didn't for this. Time to put our receiver back together. So we just simply slide all of that back together, and we screw in our barrel nut. So once again, just a real quick reminder that you do need to make sure that your barrel nut is good and tight. I don't have any torque specs for it. There aren't any torque specs in the manual. If I get some in the future, maybe we can update this. But right now, tight is good, right? Now, before we go further, we can just make sure everything is sliding freely. Everything's good, looks good so far. Let's continue to put this back together. We're going to put our sling mount back over the barrel. So I put this on first because if you wait until you've mated the upper and lower receivers, now it's time to put our gas chamber back on over the receiver, remembering that the gas chamber is just about the only thing on this rifle that is not reverse threaded. And again, I don't have any specs for this. I don't know how tight this is supposed to be. It was not significantly tight, like it wasn't super tight when I originally took this apart from the factory. So I've just been hand tightening it. I haven't had any problems so far. Hey, if I'm wrong about that, we'll update the video. And then I'm just going to put my, my lock ring on here. I'm going to get it past the first set of threads and onto the second set of threads. And again, I don't have any specs. I just make sure that that's hand tight, and then you know what? I move on, and I've been happy with that so far. Time to put the upper back together with the lower. So I'm just going to make sure everything is lined up the way that it's supposed to be. So the hammer is not cocked when I'm putting this back together. Just a quick note for all of y'all. And it's a little sticky at the back. You just got to kind of find the right spot and then slide it back into place. So I'll do that again so you can see. Again, it's a little bit sticky up here with the lug here for the back takedown pin. So I put it together about an inch worth of space, and then I just slide it back into place. And that seems to work the best, okay? So we've got the upper back mated with the lower. We're going to put in these incredible, lovely, wonderful, well-functioning takedown pins. Just going to make sure everything is lined up. And you know what? Because they go in so easily, I'm just going to give them a little bit of help. Yeah, I know I could have hammered that a little bit less if I had given it a little bit better pressure. Don't bug me about it. So our takedown pins are in. Receiver is now fully back in place. I'm just going to make sure that that sling swivel mount is back where it should be. And we're going to slide our handguard back over the gas chamber. So once our handguard is back in place, make sure you put your indexing plate back into place as well. We'll see if we can take a look at this here. It is a little bit sticky. So what I do is I kind of just reasonably get it into place. And then I allow the second barrel nut, the handguard barrel nut, the handguard nut, whatever you want to call this. I just allow the tightening of it to put this back into place. Now this doesn't necessarily have to be super tight. I mean, this really hasn't got a lot to do with keeping the barrel mated to the receiver or anything crazy like that. However, obviously you don't want it coming off when you're using it. So I just make sure it's, you know, reasonably tight. After that, we have our charging handle to put back in. We're going to line the charging handle up. And it's pretty sticky. Maybe it'll loosen up in the future, but you know, I'm just going to use the rubber mallet just to give us a little bit, we're dropping gunpowder, a little bit of help, get that back into place. I put it on the right-hand side. We took it off the left-hand side just so you can see both. As with every firearm, when it gets put back together, we're going to perform a function check. And it functions like it should. And that's how you take apart the FD12. All right, guys, we're out at an undisclosed location where we can do a little bit of a spread test with this shotgun and see how these chokes work. We're going to be shooting 7.5, number 7.5, 2 3/4 inch, obviously 12 gauge. And we're going to shoot it on this paper here, if you can see the paper. And we're going to just measure the spread at 10 meters and 25 meters. We're not going to go further than 25 meters with the 7.5, but we are also going to repeat this with 1 1/8 ounce score double up buck, 2 3/4 inch. And we're going to do that at 10 meters. We're going to do it at 25 meters, and then we'll take the buck out to 50 meters as well. And we're going to do this with, so the shotgun comes with 3 chokes. We're going to test this with 2 chokes. We're just going to use the full choke, and then we're going to use the open choke. We're not going to use the modified choke for this test. I mean, take the 2, you'll get a pretty good idea of what the modified will do for you. So we're just going to do it with those 2. You know, ammunition being what it is, as scarce as it is, we're not going to over test this. So let's get it done.
Ready?
So full choke, 7.5 at 10 meters. That's about an 8.5 inch spread. Well, it definitely spread because it took a piece of the fence post out.
Oh yeah, whole sheet basically.
Yeah, so 25 meters. We've got a spread that covers the majority of the sheet here. So, actually, you know what? It seems to stop at about 16.
But you look here, someone went a little higher up on the post.
Yeah, someone a little higher up here. We got some up here. So, well, let's say, let's just do that here. Let's say 25 inches at 25 meters with full choke. So This was 25 meters full choke,
Yes.
double up buck. And basically 20-inch spread, give or take. Okay, open choke, 7.5 shot, 10 meters. You're safe?
Yep.
At 10 meters, our spread's about 22 inches, which is about the same as the full choke at 25 meters, approximately. So let's see what this is at 25 meters. Okay, 25 meters, open choke, 7.5 shots. Tape measure out, because this is basically going from the top.
I'll hold it with you.
We're gonna say, what's that down there?
The wind.
29, 30 inches. Let's call it 29, we'll be kind. All right, 10 meters, double up buck. Open choke. That's about the same as the full choke.
Not much different, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, call that 7.25.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, call it 7. Okay, we are at 25 meters, open choke, double up buck. Shoot high, yeah,
I
okay.
thought I was shooting lower there too.
Do you have another round?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I aimed like lower too than.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
Well, wouldn't think so, but it wouldn't be impossible.
Yeah.
25 meters, double up buck, open choke.
A little more now.
You can go from top to bottom because we went all the way down to there. This was part of it, and that was part of it. So that's 21.5 inches,
Yeah.
which is not that bad.
Little get something coming at you.
So there you have it, our incredibly accurate, our incredibly scientific spread test at 10 and 25 meters with number 7.5 shot and with double up buck.